let's talk about a feeling. I'm pretty sure you felt it before, even if you didn't have a word for it. It's that shiver you get when you're facing something just immense, something powerful and, yeah, a little bit terrifying. That feeling has a name. It's the sublime. And today we're going to trace its journey from this feeling of awe all the way to something much, much darker.
I mean, really think about it. Have you ever stood at the edge of a massive canyon? Or watched a thunderstorm just roll across the plains? Or maybe just looked up at a night sky so full of stars it feels like you could fall right in. You feel tiny, right? But also totally exhilarated. That exact mix of awe and fear, that's what we're diving into. So our story really kicks off back in the 18th century with a philosopher named Edmund Burke. And he gave us this incredible phrase for the sublime, delightful horror. It's this idea of a kind of peace that's mixed with terror. But here's the key, for Burke anyway. You're feeling this incredible power, this terror, from a safe distance. You're watching the hurricane on the news, you're not actually in it.
But, things are never that simple, are they? Burke's idea was a game changer, but it also started this huge debate. Other brilliant thinkers were feeling the exact same thing, but were convinced it came from somewhere totally different. And this wasn't some small disagreement. It was a huge clash over where awe and terror actually come from.
So you end up with this really fascinating philosophical puzzle. Where is the sublime? Is it in the thing itself, the giant mountain or the raging ocean? Or is it maybe in the incredible language a poet uses to describe that mountain? Or, and this is a big one, is it something that only happens inside our own heads?
To sort all of this out, we're going to use a really cool tool called the zetetic approach. Now that sounds fancy, but the idea is actually super simple. Instead of trying to prove one philosopher right and the others wrong, we're going to treat each one like a witness. We'll listen to all their different stories, and by putting them together, we can build a way more useful, practical toolkit for understanding this feeling. All right, so let's open up that zetetic toolkit. We're about to call our 3 main witnesses to the stand, and we're going to hear their arguments for what really makes the sublime, well, sublime. First up, our guy, Edmund Burke. For him, it is all about the object. The sublime gets triggered by stuff in the real world that's just huge, powerful, and honestly terrifying. We're talking about a thundering waterfall, a massive cliff, the darkness of a deep cave. For Burke, the source is something you can literally point to. It's external, it's tangible. Okay, but our second key comes from a writer from way, way earlier, Longinus, and he argued, hey, wait a minute, it's not always about the object, it's about the words. For Longinus, truly masterful writing could basically just pick you up and transport you, shattering your composure and giving you that sublime feeling with language alone. And now for our third key, and this one is a real twist from Immanuel Kant. He basically looked at the other two and said, hold on, you're both missing the point. Kant argued the sublime isn't out there in the world and it's not on the page. It's an internal experience. It's the feeling of your own mind trying to wrap itself around an idea so huge, it almost can't. And in that struggle, you feel the incredible power of your own ability to think. Okay, so we have our 3 keys, the object, the language, and the mind. Now, let's actually put this toolkit to work. We're going to look at how some 18th century poets actually crafted these feelings of awe and terror in their work. Let's see it in action. Let's start with this wild image from the poet Charlotte Smith. So the moon is controlling the tide, and the sea is so powerful it's eroding the coastline right up to a churchyard, and it's literally unearthing human bones. You can almost feel that cold, salty spray and see the bones washing up in the waves. I mean, this is Burke's theory in a nutshell. We're faced with a terrifying object, the immense, unstoppable power of the ocean, a force that can literally pull the dead from their graves. It's a horrifying thought, right? But we're experiencing it from the total safety of just reading the poem. And that is delightful horror. Now look at this other scene from Smith. We have this lonely, isolated person standing at the edge of a giant cliff, looking down at the huge, dangerous sea below. And notice the focus on the scale, the tall cliff, and the distance from the waves. Now this is a perfect example of the Kantian sublime. See, the focus isn't just on the scary cliff. It's on the person's internal experience. When your mind is confronted with this overwhelming force of nature, yeah, you feel physically tiny. But at the same exact time, you recognize the immense power of your own mind, of your own reason, and that feeling of inner strength, that's the sublime for Kant. So we've seen how our toolkit helps us get a handle on the sublime in the 18th century. But now we're headed for a final and, frankly, fascinating twist. This is where we see how this very idea evolved into something, well, something much scarier. Just listen to these lines from a poet named Laetitia Barbauld, written way back in 1773. She's thinking about the cosmos, and she describes these solitudes of vast unpeopled space and the deserts of creation. There's this sense of deep emptiness here, a kind of dread that just feels different. That feeling of dread in unpeopled space, that was a seed. And over the next 150 years, as science revealed a universe that was bigger and more impersonal than anyone could have imagined, that seed started to grow. And it eventually blossomed into what the writer H.P. Lovecraft would pioneer, cosmic horror. And the core of cosmic horror is the terror you feel when you realize that humanity is just a meaningless speck in a vast, chaotic, and totally indifferent universe. I mean, when you put them side by side, the connection is just stunning. Barbauld's vast, unpeopled space from 1773 sounds almost exactly like Lovecraft's unexplainable dread of outer, unknown forces over a century later. What was once sublime awe before God's powerful creation becomes, for Lovecraft, the terror of a vast and completely indifferent chaos. The language is nearly identical, but the meaning has been completely flipped on its head. And this right here, this brings us to the most important point of all. The whole idea of Burke's delightful horror depends on one single thing: safety. You can watch the raging storm from a cliff and then turn around and walk away. But you can't walk away from the cosmos. You are literally inside it. There is no safe distance. And that leaves us with one last kind of chilling question. We started this whole journey with delightful horror, that powerful, thrilling feeling of awe. But what happens when you take away the safety? When you remove the delightful part of the equation, what are you left with? That journey, from the sublime to cosmic dread, shows just how razor-thin the line between wonder and absolute terror can be.